Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kate. So let's just jump straight into this video. You can see in the background here my pantry. Today I'm going to do a little bit of just a pantry sort of makeover, declutter, tidy, organize, whatever you want to call it. One of the ways that I know it's time to, have a sort out in my pantry is because I will do a food shop and then I can't actually fit everything into my pantry. So I've actually got stuff sitting out on my bench, some tins and packets of things. So I definitely know that it's time to have a good sort in my pantry when I can't fit things in there. Now my pantry is it's small. As you can see, it's quite narrow, but it is a little bit sort of deeper, I guess. So these types of pantries can be tricky just to to store stuff, to manage the items that you have in there, because it's difficult to see what's right in the back a lot of the time. But I think what I'm going to do today is just one by one, I'll do each shelf and just take it out and just sort and sort of clean and tidy and organise shelf by shelf, rather than pulling the whole cupboard out and having it all out on my bench. I did do a pantry organise. It was probably about a year ago actually. And yeah, if you've done it before, then you know it can take hours to do, especially if you've pulled everything out and then have to, organise it. It can feel quite overwhelming. So it is, I think, about, it's almost 9 o'clock in the morning here, and I do need to go out at about midday for a little bit. So I don't want to pull everything out and then just have it all sitting here. So let's get into this. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will probably just video and then do some voiceover as I'm cleaning and tidying. And yeah, let me know if this helps you, motivates you in any way, or if there's any sort of time that makes you aware that you need to sort your pantry out, then let me know. So let's get on with this. So let me show you my disaster of a pantry. As you can see, it's narrow. It's only about probably maybe 45 centimeters wide, but it's deep. And this makes for a tricky and frustrating storage situation, especially when you want to be able to reach items, but also when you want to know, what food items you actually have in there. Things get lost in the back, or you don't see that you have double ups of items. So yes, definitely not a pantry I would choose if I had different options for a pantry. And as I said before, so as to not overwhelm myself, I'm going to clean, tidy and organise each shelf one by one. So let me get everything out of this top shelf onto my bench, and then I'll give it a wipe out before I have a look at what I've got in here and what I'm going to keep, just reorganise and then put back into my cupboard. So when I did my pantry makeover about a year ago, I did get some new containers and they have worked pretty well. I got these wooden lidded containers from Kmart, but of course you will find similar on Amazon or any of your local, home goods shops. These came in a box of, I think it was about 8 different sized containers, and they are stackable, airtight, easy to clean, all the things you want in a functional storage container. And it's a bonus that they look nice as well. I have only put the items I use regularly in these containers, but a lot of, the reasoning for that was these were the only containers I had. Obviously, I could go out and buy some more, but the remaining things like backup stock, I think I've got another packet of
desiccated coconut here, dates, things like that, or less used items like corn flour, citric acid. I have kept those items in this larger clear container, and this just sits at the back of my top shelf. You can, of course, name the containers, but it's not so much needed when you have clear containers like these, because you can see what's in them. I'm just decanting what I can here into the actual containers that the items are meant to be in. It always surprises me how much space you create by just doing this one thing. When you have packets of items and then also the containers that they are meant to be in, essentially you are using twice the amount of space in your pantry than you need to be. So this was quite satisfying doing all of this decanting, and it also means that I can see what I actually have in here, what I need to add to my shopping list for the week. It just all helps with life admin when we are busy. So this top shelf is sorted now and clean, and it goes back in much the same, but just minus all the extra packaging and actually in the assigned containers. And then I'm going to empty and clean the next shelf, which is kind of my baking items shelf, I guess. But I know there are a few changes I want to make in here. So I'm just going to get all of this out and give the shelf a good clean. On this shelf, I keep my mostly baking items really, like flour, sugar, brown sugar, chocolate chips, baking powder and baking soda, cocoa powder and icing sugar, or you may otherwise know it as powdered sugar. So I'm decanting all of the extra or partial packets into the appropriate containers. One thing I have tried to do in my pantry, and you really need to do this when you have such a narrow and deep pantry or a smaller pantry, is to make the most of the vertical space. So I have a lot of stackable type containers or tall containers that use the height of the cupboard as much as possible. Now, I have had my oats in a tall container for a long time, but I decided to get this pretty glass container for them because we use oats regularly for breakfast and, protein pancakes, baking, things like that. So I will actually have this glass container out on my bench somewhere. I just need to figure out exactly where it will go. I have got plenty of room on the top shelf now, so I'm putting the cocoa powder and icing sugar up there. And then these two grey lidded containers have my sugar and flour in them. These containers are great as they are stackable and they have an easy to grab handle on them. They're perfect for this type of pantry and using the most of the vertical space. So I'm just going to give the lids a bit of a wipe down. You can't see it here, but there's lots of spare space at the back, which is great. And I haven't had that space in there for quite a few months now. And actually, something else I was going to mention, and I'm curious to know if you have this problem in your own country as well, but we in New Zealand get a lot of pantry moths. So they're not, harmful in any way. But if you don't have containers, pantry containers that have food items in them with really well sealed lids, then these little pantry moths can get in there. And it's just really frustrating because yeah, they sort of multiply and you end up having to throw food out. So, yeah, really do need well sealed, sort of airtight food containers here in New Zealand. This next shelf has got our breakfast spreads and snacks on it. I'm decanting these rice snaps into the tall container that I had my oats in. We don't actually eat rice snaps for breakfast, but I did have them left over from some Easter baking I had done. So hopefully they will get used in the near future for something else. But they do need to be kept in an airtight container to keep them from going stale. These two white containers are from Kmart and I keep muesli bars and unopened crackers in them. The tall container is meant to have opened crackers in them to keep them fresh, but to be honest, it hasn't worked very well with them in this container because of everything else that is on this shelf. I think probably I will get a shorter, flatter type of container with a clip type lid to put my crackers into. And this is something that kind of evolves over time, isn't it? Where you organize a space and live with it for a bit to see what is working and what isn't. And you need to find out what type of storage works and functions best in your pantry space rather than just doing, what everyone else is doing. It has to work for your family and your daily use. I have a Lazy Susan here, also from Kmart. These come in different sizes and they're so useful in, pantries, fridges, bathrooms. Yeah, you could use them, in your bathroom drawers, bathroom cabinets, even laundry spaces. These next two shelves are probably my most trickiest ones to manage, and I've tried various ways of arranging them since I moved into this house. I'm going to leave the herb and spice jars out this time and just try and find a different home for them to see how much extra space this gives me. I definitely only buy and stock very basic pantry staples. I don't buy anything fancy or anything that I know we won't use. I have tinned beans of various kinds in here, useful for, making any kind of vegetarian dishes, soup, stews. I've got tinned tomatoes, tinned tuna, coconut milk, tinned corn, but yeah, just very basic supplies. I have two, I guess they are like a step storage type shelf. So I'm going to try and use them both again, but in a slightly different way today, and just see if it helps with the management of these shelves. The first one is an extendable step storage shelf. So I'm going to try it in a slightly different orientation on the shelf and put most of my frequently used tins on it. And then the second step shelf can go on the next shelf down with less frequently used items and tins, things like that. I've got jars and tins and other various things in here, just kind of thrown in here because it's so unorganized and muddled. My pasta and rice I can decant into their proper containers, and then I have a black metal basket which has a few less used pantry items like quinoa, some soup mix I think I've got in there, and breadcrumbs, etc. As you can see, this has already given me so much extra space in here. It's just a reminder that it's so good for our brains and our mental health to be doing this kind of regular decluttering and organizing. And then I have two different kinds of cat food that I usually have in this long container in my pantry. So that was good to get this in the right place because it's been sitting on my kitchen counter in a bag and I haven't been able to put it away because of all the, the muddle and disorder that I've had in my pantry. One of my cats, I have to have numerous special cat foods for him because he gets crystals in his urine if he doesn't have a special diet. So, yeah, I have to have just a few different types of cat food here, but this is great just to get it into the proper place, and then I can obviously see, how much cat food I actually have left, and I can do a proper inventory and be able to know what I need to buy for the following week. On to the final stretch here, and don't be fooled with how long this took me to do. It's a small pantry, but it was probably about 2 hours of work in total. So if you have an even bigger pantry than mine, then you know you're in for a long haul on the day that you come to, declutter and organize it. This Kmart sliding shelf that I put in here last year actually has been really functional and useful for using the depth of this cupboard. It was super easy to install, especially if you have an electric drill. And because it just pulls in and out, it's perfect for a shelf that is down low. And especially if you're someone like me who has lower back problems, then you're just not having to lean in there and, get right to the back. I keep my oils, soy sauce, chili sauce, vinegars, etc. in this tool-sided Lazy Susan. And then these 2 white containers just happened to perfectly fit on the shelf as well. So I've got these stocked with salt and stock powder, taco seasoning packets, just random things like that. There is also a little room down the side of the sliding shelf where I have put a bottle of brandy, I think it is, and a big backup stock bag of Himalayan salt. Here is my finished pantry, my top shelf. I've used the same containers and just refilled them from the packets that were in here, and I've got this clear container at the back with some backup stock and some baking items. And then this shelf is mostly my baking items, so my flour and sugar would be the most regular used things here. And then right at the back I've got brown sugar and chocolate chips in front of that, and then my baking soda and baking powder. Lots of room right at the back that you can't see, but just tucked behind there, so that's super helpful. And then on to my middle shelf, the Lazy Susan here, which is easy to use with the breakfast items. And then I've got these 2 tall containers. One of them's got the crackers in it, which I am going to, just relook at that and maybe get something not quite so tall, but that will, still fit into this space. And then I've got, just snacky things, bars and unopened crackers there. And then moving down onto the next shelf. So this is most of my, common used tinned goods. I've got this black basket here with just extra items, some used items, soup packets and things like that. And then, just pasta and rice, which would be used a few times a week, most definitely. This shelf here, I've got, again, that's a backup packet of brown rice that I didn't realise I had there, and this is a perfect example of what happens when your pantry is a muddle and a mess. You don't know what's in there. Cat food I was able to put there, which was great. And then my last shelf with this awesome pull-out sliding shelf, another Lazy Susan, which has been really useful for all of my oils, etc. And just these white containers that I had spare, and they just happened to fit perfectly in there for these little sort of extra random food items. Here are my oats that I decanted into this nice glass jar, so I just need to find a place for that. And then these herbs and spices, I have decided to put them into the strawer in my kitchen. It might not be the long-term place for them, but at the moment they fit fairly nicely and should be fine in there at the moment.
Okay, so that was a good job to get done. I hope it maybe just inspired you to get stuck into your own pantry this weekend maybe. As you can see, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I really just used what I already had in my pantry. I haven't gone out and bought anything new, but it was just good to see what was in there. And if you are looking behind right at the back of your shelves, then you're probably going to find things that you've got double ups on, like I did. And it's just good to have a look at the inventory and actually see what is in your pantry and just get it functioning better for your family. So thank you for joining me today. I hope it has motivated you in some way, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.